Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Keep Up with Pryme. Today, we focus on professional services. I'm Laura Andradas, marketing lead at Pryme Global, and together with Aske Holst, product manager at Pryme Global, we will walk you through new capabilities for teams across the professional services industry. Please use the chat or the Q&A in case you have questions along the way, and we'll cover them at the end of the demo. And now over to you, Aske. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is again an update of what we have done and released in the February release. This includes features released either in the February release or in the January or December release, as this is a quarterly update. After going through the new features, we will also have a look at the roadmap for the coming to 6 months. And then, of course, we will take some questions. So new features for February 26. I have, as usual, divided this up into different areas related to different parts of a project lifecycle. So part of the setup, what is related to planning, what is related to work, and what is related to invoicing and work in progress. Let's start off with the setup area where we have a small new change. This might be one of the less exciting changes, but it's good to know about. And this is the common creation code. This is more of a technical thing, but I will show it anyway because it is worth to know. We have this feature called Progressive Feature Management. And Progressive Feature Management allows you to enable or disable new features in the system. Most of these features will at some point be mandatory, but you can control whenever they do become enabled, similar to the feature management in standard BC. Also, it is written in here when they will be enabled automatically. And one of the new features we have is the Create Project Common feature. It is said to be enabled from BC version 28. This feature in particular allows a new code path when creating new projects, which is a bit of a technical term. But currently, without this enabled, the code used to create projects from a wizard or from importing a project or from a quick guide is separate, meaning if that code has to be customized, it has to be done in multiple places. With the common project creation code, we have one code base, and so customizations become easier. And this is the way forward. We want to centralize and make new development easier and also maintenance easier. Be aware that if you already have existing customizations done to the project creation, these might need to be modified in order to work with this new feature. So while you can enable it right now, you should check before enabling it, or at least after enabling, check that project creation still works the way you would expect it to work. Next up on the agenda, we have some new features in work planning. And all these work planning features are part of our Project Work app, which is a separate app. It is part of the ProServ industry package. But if you're not using the ProServ industry package, if you're using the standalone version of advanced projects, you do not get these features. The new features added for this release is a work item calendar, a possibility to set default new processes, work processes on new projects, and also email notifications on work items. And I will show that. So the work item calendar works in a way that if you have work items, you can see them in a calendar view. And so if I take my project here, I can go in under my related and see I already have the Kanban. We've seen that previously, where you can show all the different work items that you have for this project, who they're assigned to, when they're due, and they show up as cards. The new feature is we have this in a calendar view where you can view this as a timeline. And you can see that we have 3 things to do on this project. There is a detailed specification here which should start on Wednesday and end the following Wednesday. There is a small spec here on Thursday, and then some additional tests here. This can be viewed in different ways. It could be by month, it could be as a timeline, maybe for a week or for an entire month, and we can also do grouping so I can see who this is assigned to. And we can see that there is some work for Daniel to do. This should be done by the 4th. There is some work for Prakash, should be by the 5th, and some work for Cassie to be done by the 11th. And of course, I can move these around. I can change the date and say, let's give Daniel a few more days to finish this up, or maybe this needs to be done a little bit earlier. I can simply move it. Behind these are the work items that we know from project work, where we define who does what. So this is a task to be done, a piece of work assigned to someone, and there might even be a checklist of things to do that you mark as complete as they are done. You could also, when viewing these, of course, make changes, reassign them. I could change this from Cassie to someone else, and this is where the notifications come into place. So I'm currently logged in as Prakash. This is assigned to Cassie. And if I change this from Cassie to Prakash, there should be an email notification to Prakash that he is now assigned to this. So I will change this to Prakash. This, of course, changes the timeline here as well. We can now see it is on Prakash. But at the same time, I should receive an email saying that this is now assigned to me. Here the email is coming. I'll open that up and show it to you. So here I have an email saying assigned to you at tests and some details about this task. So I get immediate notifications. These notifications, they are set up in the setup for Pryme Project Work. And here you can enable, if you have assignment notifications, you can also have overdue notifications, both for being overdue to start and overdue to complete. These will, of course, be scheduled emails to be sent out in the morning. And if you want to schedule those, then you can simply say schedule email notifications, and it will create a job queue that will run with some recurrence. In this case, it's set to run every morning at 8 to send these notifications. So this is the main feature of the main new features here. The last feature is more of a setup feature, in that when you define a project template, you can also now define the default work process. So there's a field in here on a project template to set the default work process that will be used for this kind of new projects. Again, all of these features, they are related to the project work app, which is part of the industry package for ProServ. Next up, we have a feature for reporting. There is now an integration to the cash flow forecast. The cash flow forecast has existed in BC for quite some time. They allow you to make cash flow forecasts, and we now allow data from projects and project-related work flow into those cash flow forecasts so they can be used as a databases for the reporting you do on cash flow. The way you do this is very simple. When you are setting up your cash flow worksheet, so you create a cash flow worksheet to add data into your cash flow forecast. You might have different cash flow forecasts, and you do that with your cash flow worksheet. So it will ask you to suggest worksheet lines. This will be the databases for your cash flow forecast. And there has always been a number of different options. You could have liquid funds and receivables and sales orders and fixed assets, etc. We have now added a number of fields for project budgets, project subscription orders, project schedule billings, and project ledger entries. So these are different ways to get information into your cash flow forecasts. Be aware that there could be an overlap in here. If you have project budgets and you also have scheduled billings, that's good. But if you from your scheduled billings create budgets, then you might get something double because it will both be included as a scheduled billing, but also within the budgets. So be aware of some of these. For subscription orders, you would need to set an end date because a subscription order could potentially run without an end. And then, of course, it would be an unlimited number of cash flow entries because they just repeat over and over again. And we need to set some stop point for it to not be an unlimited number. So you select what you want to have here. Of course, you can then review the data. In this case, we can see that I get some entries suggested for my demo 5 project and to some different amounts. In this case, this is some expected TMM billing and also some fixed price billing. And in this case, I would say register, and then that goes into my cash flow forecast. I'll not show the cash flow forecast. It's just a way to get data into the cash flow forecast. Within the work area, we have a few new features within the time area. One is a new field that we show in the project plan. This is related to the new functionality around reopen timesheets. It's when you reopen a timesheet can now be reopened, but if it was previously approved, there would already be project ledger entries created based on that timesheet, meaning you might have actuals for that original timesheet, and now you have it reopened. This means that the number of hours potential will show double in your project plan. And now we are separating out the hours in reopened timesheets so you can do proper reporting on it and separate out what is reopened and thus potentially double. So in the project plan, if I open up a project here, we have always had the columns for hours in open timesheet, hours waiting for approval, and hours in open time journals. Now we have the possibility to add a new column. It is not added by default. You will have to add it with personalization or customization if you're doing it for multiple users. But there is this new field for hours in reopened timesheets that can be dragged in, and that will then separately show what is in reopened timesheet versus those that are in normally open timesheets, because there's a difference. Open timesheets have never been posted. What is in a reopened timesheet could already have been posted, and when that reopened timesheet is submitted, that might then make changes to the postings. So for reporting purposes, this makes it a lot easier. Secondly, we have an option to send reminders early. These are the reminders that come with Pryme Time. Again, Pryme Time is an app that is part of the ProServ industry package. If you have advanced projects standalone, you might not have this option. But with reminders, the idea is, of course, that you can send out reminders for timesheets that are overdue, either to the resource who should submit the timesheet or to the manager who should approve it. And if I open up my Pryme Time setup, I can schedule these reminders. So I could schedule reminders for unsubmitted timesheets to resources. This has existed for a long time. The new option is that I can select to send this early. So by default, it will only send out reminders for timesheets that are overdue on the day we are sending out. So if we are sending out an email on Sundays, most of the time the timesheets for that week would technically not be overdue. They would be overdue on midnight between Sunday and Monday. So it would not send out a reminder for such a timesheet. But you can move that reminder earlier by putting in maybe -1 day. That would allow to send reminders already on Sundays for the week that ends on Sunday. You could also set it to -3. And then it would allow to send out reminders on Friday for the timesheets that actually end at the end of the week on midnight between Sunday and Monday. So this can make it a little bit easier to send out reminders early on. It's technically not overdue, but sometimes you want to send that early, especially with timesheets. We have a small new feature when it comes to the journals, where we now have proper lookups for projects and tasks. This is a feature that you might not notice if you don't think about it, but it actually makes work a lot easier. In a time journal, we have the fields for project and task. In the past, these were not proper lookup fields. They are now proper lookup fields. You simply enter in here, and then you can write something, and it will start to suggest whatever it is you want, and you just move to the next field and it selects the right thing. And the same here, I can just start writing and say, yes, this is what I want. So a lot easier to work with than having the fields that open up a new page where you have to select from. This also applies to the project expense journal. Within the purchase order area, we have a new feature if you're using our AP Automation app. The Pryme AP Automation app has a feature for purchase order matching. So if you have a purchase invoice that has come in, and that purchase invoice is related to a purchase order, then it can automatically find that purchase order and match it up with the receipt for that purchase order. Without this feature, you had to do that matching manually, and now we have a feature for it where you can go in under invoice and you can select match to order. It will go through line by line and try to match up the lines on the invoice with receipts on purchase orders that match those. It will do a quite conservative match and only match those that are a clean match, meaning the quantity matches, etc. It will not be optimistic and say this could be a partial match in some way. Maybe it will have to be a quite exact match. In the future, there will be more matching options, but we are starting with the safe way of doing it, which is a very conservative match. In the invoice and work in progress area, we have a small change in project budgeting. Actually, not budgeting, it's, well, more with purchasing, but when you're calculating the budget completion percentage for valuing fixed price projects for WIP purposes, we now include purchases that are received but not invoiced. For ProServ, that usually doesn't make a huge difference, but it could if you have a purchase for something within the project that you have received but not yet invoiced. We now take that as being a completed part of the project, which will drive up your recognized revenue because of we now include that as being work completed, even though you haven't paid for it. And this aligns with subcontracted work in the subcontracting app, where we would usually post that work ahead of time and then later get an invoice for it. So this is more of an alignment feature. Within contracts, we have added split invoicing. And split invoicing is something we've had for a long time in projects. We have now extended that to cover contracts as well. I will open up a contract here, and it is a contract, of course, covering multiple different projects that I put on one contract. I can open up the contract card, and in the invoicing section, I can select a customer split percentage. I can decide who will pay for that and in which proportion. So I could say Trey Research will pay for 30% of this, and School of Fine Art will pay 70% of this contract. Of course, you can have as many as you want. The only rule is that it has to add up to 100%. Then you will have to select Use Customer Split. When that is done, when you create an invoice, there will be multiple invoices, probably one per customer, unless there is a split by currency as well. And in this case, we should get 2 invoices, one for Trey Research and one for, was it Alpine Ski House I selected as the other one. Now, of course, I have a lot of entries on this, so it might take a little while to walk through them because it needs to not only go through all the entries, but also split them up according to the definition I created. We can see here that I now have 2 invoices, one for around 15,000 and one for 35,000. So that sounds about right for the split that I have. And I can show the document here, and we can see that this is part of the invoice. I can also see on the line level that this is for 30% of the total value. So this should make it a lot easier if you have contracts that are to be paid by multiple customers together. The last feature we will have a look at is related to project subcontracting. This is again a separate app, part of the ProServ industry package that allows you to make sure that you pay your freelancers or subcontractors that are working on a time and materials basis in an easy way. So the features we have is, first of all, we've added some new ways of creating the subcontractor statements. So if I create subcontractor statements for a certain period, let's create subcontractor statements for, in this case, February. This will pick up all the work that was subcontracted out in that period and tracked in timesheets by external resources, or where they supplied a statement of work for what they did, and we imported that in. The new feature is that we can split this up by project or by project manager. And this, of course, is especially important for approval processes where it might be different people that has to approve the work done by project managers, depending on what project it is for, or depending on who is a project manager. So if I select split by project, then I will, in this case, get 2 statements for the same subcontractor. In this case, the subcontractor is called subcontractor. And we can see that there is a bit of a split. We can also see that this is for project demo 1, this is for project demo 2. I could have done the same, but for project manager as well. And we can see that all the lines in here are for the demo 1 project. We've also added a description field to the subcontractor statements where you can add a bit of a more free text description. This is particularly important for approval processes as well, where there might be a description of work in here. We also added some fact boxes with totals. We can see here there are 2 lines, and of course I can see that as well, but if you have 1,000 lines, it might be nice to know how much there is. We also have a breakdown of the total value by resources, expenses, and items. And then we also count the quantities. We can see there are 9 hours in total here, which of course adds up. So you get a bit of statistics in here. Lastly, we are changing the process around approval a little bit. We now have a small stack here with approve, reopen, and close actions. And when we get a little bit further out in a future release, this will also allow you to use an approval workflow for this. This concludes the demo of new features. Let's move into what's coming next. So this is our roadmap for 2026 as it looks right now. This, of course, will change. Things will be added. Some things might be moved in time. So this is not a promise. This is an expectation of what will happen. I will not go into detail of all of this for all of the apps. Some of these apps are not related to or relevant for the ProServ market. But if we drill down a little bit and look at what is specifically relevant for professional services, it looks something like this. Within the time tracking, and I've split this up by timeline. So in Q1, we expect to deliver a feature on time tracking or geotagging on time entries. That means If you're on a mobile device and you use that to track time, you can optionally have it to tag the location of where that time is used. That can be nice for reporting purposes. We also have the purchase order matching, which will be extended with additional functionality. Going into Q2, there will be what I think will be one of our best coming features, time tracking outside of Business Central. This will be with our Pryme Time app, where we will deliver an outside of BC experience. You will be able to have a small app outside of BC that should make it a lot easier to track time without opening up Business Central. And so especially for users who are not too keen to get into Business Central, it should make it a lot easier. For work planning, we will add some additional structuring by creating work item types and also enabling automatic assignment of work with some roles and rules around that. When it comes to AP automation and purchasing, there will be some new features around the Pebble format for e-invoicing and the importing of those. And we will also extend some of the features in the mapping features where you can map some of the fields and the values in the fields in different ways. Then we will introduce a new app, which will also be part of the industry package for risk management. This will allow you to do risk management, work with a risk register, track those in a risk matrix, and do a risk assessment per project. Moving on to Q3, Q4, there's a lot on the list. Again, the timeline here might shift a little bit, but what we're looking at is a big feature area of project budgeting. This is within the advanced projects feature where we will be looking at delta budget changes. So what is the difference between budgets so you can make changes to a budget and see those separately, add comments to the budget changes, and also then highlight what has changed when you send something for approval, so that a small change to a budget doesn't necessarily mean that you have to review the whole budget again, but you can review only what is changed. Within work planning, we will look at personalized Kanban boards and also try to connect up the work items with the resource planning feature of work assignments. Within time tracking in Pryme Time, we will add the capabilities to work with policies. There's currently a feature for rules in descriptions. We will switch that more to a policy concept where you will have a policy document that describes what is a good description, what is allowed to have in a time entry description, and then we can use some AI copilot features to review those descriptions and either flag what is outside of what is allowed in the policy, or maybe even make those changes according to policy. We also want to enable batch changing or batch editing of descriptions. So for projects where there's a lot of work done, a lot of descriptions, maybe you want to make sweeping changes, do changes to some words that should be changed in multiple descriptions. And we will keep working on the risk management, extend the functionality of risk assessments to not only projects, but also clients, and hopefully add some features for Copilot helping with identifying risks. That's all we had for the roadmap for 2026. So Laura, back to you.
Thank you, Aske. And it looks like we have no questions today. But before we go, a quick reminder, since we have other sessions coming up this week for other industries, legal, construction, accounting, and nonprofit. So feel free to register for any that interests you, and you'll find the registration links at prymeglobal.com under live webinars. Thanks for joining us today. And if a question comes up later, please get in touch. Have a great day.